We're going to have today a session that's going to take about 30 minutes. I hope that we're not going to take longer, just so that we can have a lot of time dedicated to questions and answers and experience sharing at the end. So I'm gonna get going. Please do ask questions along the way. Everything is allowed. We are trying to put together this series of webinars as a platform for open conversations to help as many of our business partners as possible. There's no very tight rules to the format of this conversation, so please go ahead and interrupt me whenever you like. I'd actually be grateful to take you know, a sip of water or something once in a while. So whenever you feel you want to make a point or have something interesting to share or just ask, please go ahead. This is the second webinar. Some of you have been last week with us in our first webinar, where we considered many challenges that businesses have. We're actually doing a couple of things around this time. One is the series of webinars where we are opening this platform to each and every one of you. Please consider if you have interested in content, or if you have interested in points to make, or we are offering you this platform to have your own voice heard. And we believe that every one of the participants in today's call has very important things to share with the world. I've personally been inspired by many conversations that I had with you, with some of you these days. So please go ahead, suggest some topics. We'd be happy to help you with the logistics and with promoting this up there and so on. We don't want this to be our own pie. We definitely hope this will help each and every one of you, and it will make our business ecosystem and community stronger. Today's webinar topic came out of the last week's conversation, because we had many conversations around how you can still grow your pipeline in times of crisis. And although this is a very difficult topic to cover, I would very much like to consider this issue for you today. So basically, what's included in our webinar today? First of all, we had some introductions in the beginning. We'll have some more time in about half an hour to do more intros. Then I'd very much like you to subscribe to this webinar series and contribute. So please feel free to propose topics, and please feel free to take a stand and come in front of the camera and start talking to the world and start contributing to other people's success. We are also taking a pulse of the market. So we're running a questionnaire each week in the hopes that, first of all, we will see how things improve or sometimes maybe plunge down, and to see where the business community needs more help from a marketing and sales perspective. For example, last week, we noticed that 50% of the revenue was lost in a single month. However, 70% of the respondents, and this week 100% of the respondents still have their marketing budget allocated in place for the year. That being said, 80% do not have a strategy on what they should do with this marketing and sales budget. So basically, we hope that you will get a lot of inspiration out of these types of conversations. We're going to do some experience sharing on what the previous crisis meant for us. And I'm gonna ask some of you that have been with your businesses in the previous crisis to contribute with maybe your own experience to this point. We're going to talk about keeping your customer close, being bold in these times, the fact that people will remember you. So it does matter what you do nowadays. and we'll have the section of Q&A, which I know it's the most interesting and important one. So what's been our previous experience with the global crisis? I have been through 2 crises with some of the businesses that I am involved with, also with some non-government organization in education. And the crises were 2008, for example, and the way it affected, I'm talking right now strictly about NNC, but also this is very, let's say, this is the general case for everybody up there on the market that I've met that lived through those times. So in 2008, we had... Do you want to add anything? Okay. So in 2008, we started, we saw a decrease in business. Actually, early 2008, some of the contracts were suspended. It was a general crisis that globally started in 2007, but we started feeling the effects like in the spring of 2008. We had this business for less than 2 years. NNC was opened in June 2006, but operational wise, it was effective only since October 2006. So we were less than 2 years. We started investing in people, in offices, and so on. And we had to survive for 8 months on a single customer retainer. To this day, I'm still grateful to that customer that helped us survive basically through this crisis. I don't think that they ever knew how grateful we were and how important they were for us. But we used this time quite a lot to help our customers and other partners in our ecosystem. But what I can tell you for sure, so back then, what I can tell you for sure was that everybody was very cautious. Everybody was like, we're going to wait to see what happens next and so on. So, and this happened with all of my businesses. In 2012, the financial crisis affected us again because we just started investing in our business in the US. We opened our business in US in November 2011. And when the crisis hit in 2012, we were, I think, a bit better prepared. First of all, having a new business in the US where people were not that scared of the crisis and the market was a bit more mature helped. We got some business from there. However, the size of the business we were getting decreased, the size of the retainers decreased. But this time, because we knew what's the game, we actually started developing new services, which were smaller, less customer investment. We were asking for less commitment. This is how lead generation services started for us. And we started pushing a lot onto new markets. For example, these are some of our first interactions also with the Polish market. So we started pushing on sales a lot in terms of cold calling, and we started working out like massive actions in terms of marketing and sales. I added in here 2 graphics, one of which is Oracle and another one is Microsoft, just so that you can see that even big businesses, although they are on yearly retainers and so on, they are still impacted by a bad year, right? So you can see the downfall. This is not representative 2015 for Microsoft, because I think this is when they were forced to split. But I'm talking just 2008, 2009, the consequences, and 2011, 2012. It also took us 2 years after 2012 to come back to the same turnover of the business. So hopefully, you can understand what that meant. And maybe, I don't know, Angelo, did you have the business back then?
In 2012.
Yeah, like in 2012 or 28.
Yeah. So in 2012, that's the year that I negotiated and then bought direct. So I was making, I mean, it was, you know, I was already far along the path. I was not going to pull out. At the end of November, we signed the contract, the sale contract, and on December 31st, we actually, that was the day that it was registered in the court and actually transferred the money. So we typically count, let's say, the new era of the company from the 1st of January 2013. So I guess, you know, like we were just talking about on the call today, that the crisis, you know, might be an opportunity for us. If we really think about it, when we started on January 1, 2013, we had 9 people and we have over 100 today. And we grew really fast in that year, 2013. We grew a lot. And maybe that's because because of the crisis, people were looking to make changes in the way that they were doing business. It was a time of change. So I guess we were in the right spot for it to pick up a lot of business. It was actually, if I think of it now, it was even easier to get phone calls and get meetings than it is today, or than it has been up until now.
I think that you're right there, meaning that usually one thing that we notice with the crisis is that everybody stops calling. And this is actually something wrong from my perspective in terms of how you should approach lead generation and sales. But we will see a bit later why this happens. Let's see if someone else was running business around that time. Daniel, can you share some of your experience with those years? Is Daniel with us?
Yeah, hello.
Hi, Daniel.
Hi. So, yeah, I think it affected us very little in 2008. We were freshly acquired by a company, and they had high costs. We had much lower costs back then, so they moved a lot of development from Sweden, where they were, to Romania. So that helped a lot. And the existing customers kind of stayed the same, more or less. We didn't lose customers, or we didn't have major reductions in retainers. So it was okay in 2008, and I would say much better after. So for us, it was in a way an opportunity. But that was a situation which probably we don't find ourselves in today. 2012, I have no idea what you're talking about. Sorry. Was there a crisis in 2012?
It was a major financial crisis in 2012, a global one, but apparently you haven't felt it. So
no.
Good for you. That's actually a good thing.
Yeah, but what you are saying reminds me of, I think, what's the guy, the former Fed guy, Bernanke, I think, said that this is not like a crisis. This is like a major blizzard, which is very long. So it's quite different, at least so far, from a crisis.
Okay.
It's not that it doesn't have a crisis component, but it has a different structure.
So both of you are actually very inspiring for our conversation today. That goes to show you that actually, as a small business, you can even thrive in terms of crisis. And it's interesting that some of you don't even notice that you were in a crisis. So that's totally amazing. And this is basically what I'd like us to discuss about, and how I'd like us to see this, not necessarily as a crisis, but as a major opportunity. So in terms of what you notice in times of crisis, for those of you that are going first time or haven't noticed before what happened during crisis, you will notice the bigger the company is, the more you feel it. At some point, I think that when you represent a majority or at least a significant share of the market, you definitely are taking a clear shot or a hit from this market changes. But what happens from a market perspective, usually in the first stage, it's chaos and panic. Nobody is going to pay attention to your marketing messages. Nobody is going to, pay attention to your efforts on sales efforts and so on, because everybody is just looking at the media. People are tensed and so on. Then this, of course, reflects in the follow-up stage into the way the customers express less demand. They're just scared. So at this point, and you will notice that there are markets actually that just, you know, because they have been through previous crises, even understand that they should not express less demand, but that they are part of this trophic cycle, and that if they express less demand, then this interacts with the whole economy, and they are doing damage. But especially for the unprepared markets, this is a normal reaction. Clients do express less demand. Then there's the decreased cash flow and the decreased basically turnover or return on business. So everybody basically doesn't have cash. The cash is blocked. And sometimes even if you do have orders and so on, you don't get the cash in the door. This is why, for example, we got even advice from some accountants, and I'm not just talking about our accountants in Europe, but also in the US. Everybody's like, pay attention to the way you are looking at your cash flow, sell cheaper with advance payment than afterwards. This is why, so that you don't go into a block of cash. Then everything becomes volatile. From your activities in terms of marketing and sales, what that means is that nobody pays attention to your marketing efforts, that you have a decreasing pipeline and the value of orders decreases, and everything plunges down into your analytics. So if you have like a CRM or some, even an Excel where you track opportunities, this becomes, you know, less and less populated. Then the sales cycle becomes longer. So what used to take like 3 to 6 months now can take a year and a half. We had SaaS business in the last two crises that, you know, with a SaaS business, sometimes you buy CRMs for a small, let's say a small CRM seat, you know, you buy it online. It's almost an instant decision, taking customers 3 to 6 months to purchase like a $20 seat or something. They would revisit and revisit and revisit the website, and, but so they would express the need, but they wouldn't buy, right? With very little amounts. Then your KPIs become times 10. What that means? It means that if before from 10 qualified conversations or meeting requests or something, one of them would sign, like you would get a deal, now you need to go through 100 opportunities to make sure that one is signed. It's not always the case. And there are still industries that are favored. Even in this crisis, for example, we have some customers in fintech that are thriving around this time, or customers that have technologies that serve, let's say, food or beverages or health. So these type of companies are doing great. This is why probably you need to look into the industries that are making it really big right now, and to see and follow the money, right? See which industries are going well and try to position against those. But basically for the rest of us, you have to multiply our KPIs times 10. That being said, we are right now into the stage 1 from my perspective. If I look at the previous crisis, so this is my own comparison term, and with the businesses that we worked with before, I believe that we are at stage 1 because we are still closing business and the KPIs are still flowing. But I have seen a stat in e-commerce published yesterday where they said that with the crisis that there was a big decrease in traffic with all e-commerce websites. The traffic is up, but they're selling less and less. So basically the sales, closing the deals becomes a challenge, because everyone, even private people, even if there are great sales offers and opportunities right now, are careful to preserve their cash. And in the first stage, you will see that basically you need to adopt a strategy to the current crisis. So decide on quick activities, quick wins, how you can lower cost, even give things without profit, right? Just to cross the gap, just to go over this period. So in our case, for example, we used to update our strategy daily. We are now, and I'm talking just about ourselves, but this is also backed with experience from customer project. We are looking right now at customer projects that are updating strategy weekly. So every week we are reviewing the strategy for marketing and sales. Now, I want us to keep this in a positive tone because I'm actually champion of things getting done and being focused. So I believe that there is an escape out of this, and that we don't need to be trapped in this crisis, basically. I believe that, like, personally, I'm not a fan of Donald Trump, but if you heard his statements these days, I do think that he's right in saying that actually the economy, the problems generated by this crisis in economy is going to have a much bigger effect on people's lives than the actual death toll. I believe that poverty actually has a much bigger effect on you know, the way people live and so on. So definitely we need to get out of this crisis. We need to be focused on our business growth. So even if that doesn't really sound sensitive with the messaging that's been sent out these days, this is going to be the rest of the presentation about how do we get out of the crisis even before we fully stepped into it, because I believe that what's worse is just about to come. If we look, for example, at the McKinsey studies, which I cited today in my short clip on LinkedIn. Does anyone recognize this picture? Greg, you must recognize it.
I most certainly do.
What's that?
That would be the beautiful city of Boston.
That's the beautiful city of Boston. That's correct. Actually, this is not my picture. It's I wish I would have taken this picture, but it's a picture that I found online. It's funny, in 2012, I was taking some trips to the US in the financial crisis. It seemed that US was was the place where most of our business was coming from. One day I was very, very tired and I was walking through the harbor, and it's interesting, the place that you see where the light is coming up is a great fish restaurant. And after an unimaginable hard day with, I think, 7 meetings or something, I had to rest in there. So this picture reminds me of, you know, going to the bottom and then starting all over again. So how are we going to do that? First of all, you have to keep your customer close and your competition closer. So I would advise you that you touch base with everyone, every customer, every prospect. Do you remember what I said last week? What did I say last week? What should you do in terms of lead generation and sales?
2 calls a day.
2 calls a day, right? 2 calls a day, people. No, there's no other way to get out of this unless you listen to what your customers say. And what that means, it means that they won't necessarily tell you what you like to hear, but they will tell you what they need. And for example, if they need personnel, right? And you have, let's say, Mirella, that's in our call today, she has a financial advisory company, and I'm sure that she is rather busy around this time of the crisis, and everybody asks her and so on. And if you have assistant, let's say secretary and things like that, and you're not using them in the business, today, maybe you can come up with a deal with Mirella that your secretary takes over some of her phone calls and some of her answers and so on. That doesn't need to be everyone's case, but for example, these days I heard that McDonald's is actually striking a deal with Carrefour, if I'm not mistaken, where they are renting personnel to Carrefour. So you have to be very flexible in the way you think, to understand what your customer needs are and to understand how you may be able to help them. I have a friend that, you know, and I probably used this example before. She used to do bridesmaids dresses, and right now she's actually helping with sanitary supplies like the masks and so on. This was her opportunity. She is thriving, but if she wasn't open-minded to hear what the market need is and to talk to people in her ecosystem and to help, she wouldn't be able to do that. So understand what are their challenges. Don't call to sell, call to help, right? Be empathetic, hear what their challenges are. We have quite a few customers that had to give up, for example, on existing commitments because their business was put on hold due to the crisis, or even sometimes the government closed the business. We are pro bono helping them, for example, to get digital, to shift their business model and so on, just so that they can cross over this gap. So talk to people, see where you can help. Money will flow later on, okay? I would advise you to over communicate. For example, right now I'm talking more than ever on social media with our employees, with our customers. I'm trying to talk as much as possible, especially because we're isolated, especially because this is going to have a toll on our you know, the way we impact communication, the way we impact people's lives. It's very important to over communicate. Plus there's so much noise up there. Unless you over communicate with people in your network, they won't hear you. So it may seem like posting 5 times on social media on each channel a day sounds like a lot, but believe me, only like 1/10 of the people still hear what we have to say, okay? So please over communicate anything with your customers, prospects, and so on. Keep an eye on the competition, see what works for them, and see if you can either partner or even benchmark against what they're doing good, okay? So don't be closed. Don't say just because they do it, I'm not gonna do it. We are actually partnering right now. Even in our call today, there's a few agencies which we love to have as partners, right? And even if it's just sharing information and experience and providing each other with platforms to communicate, that's still a gain, right? We learn from each other. And I would advise you to look at the bigger picture. I heard so many interesting stories and inspiring stories about how some of our partners are supporting their business ecosystem. I don't want to, maybe this is a sensitive topic for some of you, so I'm not going to call out names, but if you want to share, for example, how you supported some of your business ecosystem, suppliers or customers, or even the medical system and so on, please come out and share your story. So can a couple of you that I know you've done this share a few thoughts right now?
Good afternoon, everybody.
Hello.
Hello. So I think this question applies to me, at least to us. We operate in the health sector in Switzerland and Italy, the 2 countries that nowadays are the most affected by this crisis, this health crisis. And our customers are directly hospitals or company in the entourage of hospitals, so providing services to hospitals in terms of medical records management, data extraction and screening from medical imaging. And we have felt this crisis a lot, not in terms of, not in the sales process, but more in in new rapid requirements of shift in technology over regarding our platforms and our system. So we have been asked to answer to R&D questions that we have never answered before and in a very short amount of time. In particular, in terms of screening of infections or patient profiling, pre-assessment of infected people from ESC scans of the lungs and various other questions. So we are facing this problematic at the moment, and we're trying our best to shift towards the new customer requests.
Andrea, this is amazing. Thank you on behalf of everyone for doing that. Anybody else would like to share some? Yeah.
Yeah, I want a quick story. It's not really mine, but I saw it by a dear friend, local company last night on Facebook, and the company makes lacrosse helmets, and my friend is in charge of the manufacturing of those, which is done here in the United States. And when faced with the challenge of closing their factory, he and an engineer instead realized they have the equipment and the supplies where they could shift into manufacturing something else. And so they are creating essentially one of the protective face masks that covers a healthcare worker's face and has a strap around the back. And he showed it on Facebook last night. And within a week's time, they were able to reconfigure some machinery with existing supplies and begin manufacturing these masks that they now have available to those who need them that are in short supply. So it's just an example of being able to shift and think outside the box a bit about it's not a technology play. But it's a really smart use of keeping people busy, and the machinery and the equipment that that company's already invested in.
Thanks, Greg. That's really interesting. Anybody else would like to share a few thoughts on this?
Yeah, hello. This is Andreas speaking from Munich, Germany. We are a remote specialist, and 2 weeks ago we started about thinking how we can help companies, other people, and we started to create some kind of a offer to bring companies, to shift companies to remote working and to home office, because we a lot of companies who are not used to digital will face a lot of problems. So we started that, creating up an offer, created up different offers. We started also with advertisements to that, and we offered NGOs, any social institutions to how to say, to get it, to do it for free. Yeah, but till now it's really hard. Nobody wants help. And so we have an IT, they take care, and then I have friends who are working at some of these places, and they say it's a mess, that's not working, but you talk to, yeah, it's somehow a bit strange. Yeah, so but this is how what we did. Yeah.
Okay, anybody else would like to share some of their own? Okay, so first I'd like to add something here. We actually benefited of a few customers willing to extend their collaboration in this crisis, telling us that we are ready to, put this commitment much longer ahead of time than we need to, just to support the ecosystem, and just because we know that we have to keep the money flowing and we have to keep the business flowing. And this allowed us actually to help quite a few businesses around us that couldn't afford anymore the services. On top of that, I know that NGOs in particular need quite a lot of help right now. They may be too busy to even ask for it. This is where, the over communication part, making at least 2 sales calls a day and so on, or at least 2 calls a day, let's not call them necessarily sales, to help calls a day, comes into place. So please don't stop. The more you do, the better. Plus it gives you a chance to understand also how you can catch your customers' attention. So even if you feel that you have a great offering and nobody's hearing it, push some more until you see that there is traction, okay? There's usually the hockey stick. It's not valid just with the way the coronavirus is spreading. It's valid also with the way the social message is spreading. So basically keep pushing until you cross the hockey stick. Basically, another thing that I'd advise you to do is to try to personalize even mass communication. So even if, for example, you are doing communication at scale and so on, make it relevant to the people's needs, make it relevant to what they need to hear, keep it positive, be sensitive to the channel, be sensitive to their preferences, to the moment that you're doing it, and so on. Moving along, because we are a bit behind the schedule, what else can we do? We can be bold and proactive. Being bold is actually one of the values that I'm greatly inspired from. This is a entrepreneurs organization value. I'm actually a communications chair with entrepreneurs organization. I know I have some colleagues here in the meeting today, so thanks for joining. Instead of proactive in there used to be aggressive, but with being sensitive of these times, I think aggressive was not the best word. However, I still believe you have to be aggressive or at least active in the way you do the marketing and the sales these days. One very important thing is to keep your marketing and sales teams very focused. A lot of marketing personnel especially, but also sales, does not find meaning in what they do these days. What that means is that their messages don't go through, right? Exactly what you said. We have this great offering. We're giving it away for free. Why isn't anyone taking it, right? There is too much noise up there and you have to keep them focused. I remember an example which I used to mention to some of you that have worked with me on their sales strategy before. But for example, when I was working with some insurance companies teams, one of the motivation in there was they were not rewarding people for the good calls. So for example, they were not awarding people, I don't know, $1,000 if they make a good call, but they were awarding people $1,000 for 100 negative calls. What that tells you is basically that these are the times where you have to reward pushing to, if you want, like against the wall until the wall gets down, okay? So keep your sales people focused, keep your marketing people focused, repeat every day if needed how important it is that everyone keeps their job, that they are at the forefront of your business and their activity drives business and food to everyone's table in the company. So don't get demotivated. Even you as business leaders, don't get demotivated by 1,000 negative calls. Be motivated by 1,001 email that's positive, even if it's a small positive, okay? I repeat this every day, and at some point I believe that this propagates as a vibe into my business network. So I hope that it's going to inspire you, but maintain a positive profile. The times are tough. There's enough negativity in the world. There's enough things to get you down, right? You have to, in a group, and even if we're talking about our company, even if we're talking about our team, even if we're talking about the customers we interact with, it doesn't matter. Usually the vibe is given by the average of the group. So if you don't maintain a positive profile and there's too much negativity, this is what will come out. over communicating with positivity, with energy, overstating the benefits, the great offerings that you have and so on, is still going to drive business. I can guarantee you. For example, I started doing this short videos to answer some of your questions via YouTube. We get amazing feedback. We actually get leads off of those just because we're actually just trying to help. And these were put together just so that we can help our ecosystem with advice on what still works and what they should do. But this whole, let's say, willingness to help and positive attitude actually reflects back. So please maintain a positive profile. Numbers are your friend. What that means is that you have to do mass marketing, mass sales, mass communications. Don't look at small numbers. Don't do personal profiling. Don't do, especially in B2B, because we're talking B2B right now. We don't have time for that anymore. And the strategy of every customer changes each day. So my advice to you is try to personalize, try to make it relevant, but do it at mass scale, because as I mentioned, your KPIs are times 10 right now. So in order to close a deal, you will need 10 more leads that you needed before, okay? And also use modern marketing and sales tactics. I mentioned about video marketing and social sales, but there's quite a few more. For example, I don't know, digging through customer websites technology or through e-commerce technology, or there's a ton of new marketing and sales techniques and automation available, even for free, right? That you can put together so that you can actually get to these big numbers that are still going to ensure your sales. To give you an example, last week, because sometimes we have to produce certain KPIs or our contracts are against certain customer KPIs, but right now those KPIs are not anymore into place. We had to go back to mass mailing again, and we did the KPIs, but instead of 100 hand-picked contacts, we did a mass mailing of 1,000 not so hand-picked contacts, right? But we got to the same KPIs. As I said, people will remember you. What that means, on top of just being positive, it means that actually what you are putting out right now, be careful how long it's maintained. For example, if you have discounts, if you have freemiums, if you have different things that you're putting together, make sure that either they have a validity of a short term, or that you have a clause to getting out of that or renegotiating that once the crisis is over, right? Because right now we know that we will do everything to survive without profit, even to recover some costs for some of our people, and the government may be sustaining some of our taxes or something. But long term, actually, if let's say you put a big discount up there and people subscribe for 12 months, it may provide you the guarantee that you have a contract for 12 months. But if the crisis is over in 3 months and you don't get tax exemptions, you now are losing money in your business. On top of that, this also means that whatever you will do can be maintained after the crisis, meaning think of services and solutions that can help you even after the crisis. For example, in 2012, we started doing lead generation, okay? Some of our customers, as I mentioned, that are right now in professional training, face-to-face training, are going digital. But the way we're setting this up for them is that they will remain with this part of their business, like the digital, the e-learning, long-term, right? This is not a one-time thing, especially that there's still an effort invested in it. So whatever you consider for the current time, please maintaining long-term. genuinely, I advise you to help anyone in your network or ecosystem achieve their goals also. It doesn't really matter, as long as we have, you know, food on the table and we're healthy, there will be, you know, enough to feed everyone around us. Please genuinely help everyone in your ecosystem. It's something that, if you haven't read, I recommend you to read Give and Take. It's a great book. But what it shows you is that it doesn't matter the times, givers are the ones that are on top of the food chain, right? So it may sound counterintuitive. I don't know how to justify this, but please help genuinely everyone in your ecosystem with whatever you can. There's a ton of ways to help out there. And I think I mentioned what it meant for us in previous crises. But if you, like if you haven't gotten the full story before, it forged employee and customer relationships. It gained us a really good brand, word of mouth and positive word of mouth. For example, after the 2012 crisis, everybody was recognizing our name in technology just because we were contributing with a lot of how-to guides and podcasts and email articles and so on to every association in IT. So we were really well known, even though we were not doing great in terms of cash flow, let's say. Be prepared and be agile, and most than anything, have a positive attitude against the way you will conduct business, because there's a way to thrive even in the current market conditions. What that means is that we are small businesses, we adapt, we are not giants, we're not Accenture, and even they are finding ways to survive right now. We are going to get out of this situation, especially if we rely upon each other, especially if we help each other. So please remember, again, people do notice you. People will remember what you said, what you committed to. And if you do such a time commitment to develop new products and services, to communicate a lot in your network, make sure that you do this sustainable over time, not just in the time of crisis. We're going to go to the Q&A session. We took a bit longer for the presentation, but I hope it was interesting and it got you some ideas. However, I wanted to mention that we started a LinkedIn and a Facebook group where we maintain a lot of Q&A, meaning that if you have questions like, what should I do? How should I promote this? Nobody is listening to what I have to say. I have this great offering. How do I put it out? We will help with advice, with pushing your content out, with, you know, helping you with strategy, whatever you need. Please join these groups. There are links here, and we're going to distribute this presentation after the webinar. Our next webinar next week is actually based on the survey this week. The survey this week said, like the results said that handling digital communication during crisis is a very important topic for you. So this is what we're going to tackle next Thursday. Maybe Juana and Monica can take a minute to speak about this if they want to.
Yeah, hi Loredana. This is Juana. I'm one of the partners in NNC Services. So me and Monica, my colleague, are going to. We got many requests to come up with specific, you know, tips and tricks about what people should do right now in terms of the digital communication. So next week, both me and Monica are going to try to answer the, let's say, major questions about why you should communicate, who should communicate, what, where, and when. And we're going to try to be really specific. We'll media channels, what should happen to your website, and so on. So we are looking forward to seeing you again next Thursday.
So let's go to the Q&A session. We had some very interesting questions from our from the participants at the webinar. When you subscribe to the webinar series, you also addressed questions and points, which I'd like to address. I asked Andrea and Alexandra and Juana and some other people in our team to help us with this. So I will let each of them take over some of these questions and answer you. This is already an after hours, so feel free, if you don't have time, we will send you the recording and so on, but we hope that you will still remain for the Q&A session. And it's also an open conversation, so even if you have questions now or later on, you can address them, and hopefully you will accompany us after hours for the Q&A session, okay?
Loredana, I just want to take the opportunity to say that it's very inspiring, and thank you for that. I will get back to you afterwards, and I will write you a few lines. Really, thank you. This was really pushing. I did so many cold calls today, and afterwards, I have to say, it is yeah, promising.
Okay. This is why we're doing it. We're doing it, you know, for the energy of it. So I'm really happy we're able to do that for our group. So thanks for joining us. So Juana, Andrea, do you want to take over for the Q&A session?
Yes, sure. So we had several interesting questions. Anna Warva from Fidzai she asked us what can be the most challenging factor and what can be the most attractive one to help grow the pipeline in today's reality. So I'm just going to share my opinion here, but if anybody else wants to jump in, you're more than welcome. I believe the most challenging factor nowadays actually the mindset of salespeople and business people in general. And Loredana has just touched a few points about this. People, you know, consider that during crisis, it makes no sense to sell more because nobody will answer, nobody wants that. Or just they would like to move focus more on the existing customers and so on. So I believe this is the most challenging, to more sales-oriented approach, pushy and even aggressive, like Loredana mentioned. And the most attractive one, I would say it's experimentation. I think this is the proper time to test and try various channels and methods. You know, when there's nothing you can lose, why not send, you know, video messages instead of infographics to format your proposals? Why not try to use Facebook as a B2B channel rather than just LinkedIn? So I would say that experimentation is one of the most attractive things about what you can do nowadays to increase your pipeline. But maybe somebody else can also share their ideas. What do you find most challenging with sales?
Juana, I'll add that we all need to appreciate that so few people even really do any of these things in the prosperous times when everyone is active, and you know, these crisis things aren't in the way. So something like 10 or 12% of people actually really do proactive outbound work and work on their inbound strategies. So gosh, now's a great time to get ahead of your competition, and always even in non-crisis times, in a helpful, communicative, you know, less selling, more sort of personal basis. But for me, I mean, I think it's just getting out of my own way and appreciating that there are still companies out there who are growing and those who are trying to figure out how to grow. And it's an awesome time to go find who you can help and just go do it. I think you'll see results.
That's right. Thank you, Greg.
Andrea, do you want to take over another question?
Yes, actually, I like to answer the question from Andreas, who spoke earlier. You asked us before about how to convince customers not to stop investing. Well, I do believe that this webinar gave you already some ideas about this, but you have an advantage because of the fact that the work that you do is remote. So now, because people are scared and businesses are also scared, you could try to push this message forward in all the email campaigns on LinkedIn and social media, maybe do some Facebook ads as well in all your B2B and B2C communication. Explain to your potential customers that they can keep their employees safe and they shouldn't worry about loss of productivity, because your solutions for remote working can help them do that, if that helps. It makes sense.
Thanks a lot. Thanks a lot.
Andreas, you're in a great spot. You know, you should be out there on knocking on everyone's, well, not door, because you cannot do that these days, but definitely call everyone. Like
we started last week with the first advertisements on LinkedIn, on Facebook. We did video clips. We did so much. We bought traffic. We wrote 7 blog articles last week to help people how it works, but we got a lot of traffic, but nobody's responding on that.
It's very good that you did all these activities. I would advise to continue doing so. Loredana was mentioning earlier that if now we are contacting 100 people and we're getting 1 lead now, because everybody is in panic mode or freezing, we should contact 1,000 in order to get 1 lead. So don't get discouraged and continue doing what you're doing, because people are going to get out of this freeze mode soon, because it can't last forever, and you're going to end up probably with more business than you expect.
We also thought that it's, but
Also, Andreas, you don't marry someone on the first date. What that tells you is that, you know, we have even a methodology, like in terms of the call to actions, you have to ask 6 to 7 times a clear call to action before someone hears you, right? So and usually that's spread apart at least 1 week away. If you do too much in too short time, you get noisy to people's ears, so they will try to back off a bit. You have to ask like once a week on give a clear call to action or add value to what they're doing and so on, and do this over 6 to 7 weeks. This is research based, and I will share that. Actually, you gave me a good idea for the clip tomorrow of what we will share. But please remember, you don't marry someone in a week, especially in crisis, right? So stay positive, stay committed. There is definitely business up there, especially for what you do. Okay.
Stay consistent.
Thanks a lot.
So I believe that we had also a question regarding shrinking economy. I don't know if Monica is here, that asked about the demand decreasing for tax advisory and auditing services. Monica, are you here? I answered a bit. Hi, hello.
Hi. Hello, everyone.
Hi, Monica. Nice to have you with us.
Yes, I'm here. Hello.
Okay.
Yes, I'm actually running auditing and tax advisory, small company. and our customer, we are actually right now in this comfortable situation that currently that we are performing the already contracted work. Because now it's just high season. However, what I'm afraid is going forward is that demand for tax advisory services and demand for some valuation, business valuation, or even auditing can be dropping because, of course, the sales revenues and the size of our customers will be shrinking a bit. So some of them may close also the business. So that was my main concern. That's why I enrolled for this webinar. I find really valuable, you know, hearing you guys.
So a few things to specify. First of all, you are in a very sweet spot. I'd ask everyone to make this exercise and practice. Do not worry of what will happen. Start living today, be grounded on what is happening today, and do what you have to do to thrive today. Dan Pena, for example, is a great business coach that actually did some studies with his trainees. And what he noticed is that people don't take the right decision because they worry too much of what is going to happen. And the most successful, aggressive business people that he met were under 30. And it wasn't age related, but it was the courage to take decision grounded in today and the data they had right now, rather than going with the fears of what's going to happen, I don't know, 3 months, 6 months, 12 months ahead. So please stay grounded in what's happening today. I have had the privilege to be part of a few webinars, including tax advisory in the UK, for example, where we're starting to develop an office right now. And and it's not valid just for the UK, but actually what people need most in crisis is a lawyer and a tax advisor, right? If you are communicating this correctly to your contacts base, I am more than sure that actually you will have quite a bit of business going on. This is very important in any situation, but even if a company closes a business, there's so many accounts to get together. You know, you don't want to be liable once the crisis is over, and you don't want to be confronted with the legal system just because you did something wrong. So I am sure that in your case, it's not a problem right now, and it's not going to be a problem of the crisis. Try to get over your fears and try to be grounded in what's happening today. Help your customers and the ones that may be prospects or may need help. And I'm sure that you will get a lot of business. Okay.
Okay.
Juana, Andrea, do you have other questions to answer?
Yes. Here didn't express specific questions, but they mentioned challenges they have at the moment. And one of them was growing the business, you know, by finding new projects. This one came from Ovidio Philip at Wayfair. Ovidio, are you with us?
Yeah, I'm still here.
Hello.
Hi. Yeah.
So, Ovidio, you are from Cluj.
Yes, I'm from Cluj.
Yes, can you tell us a bit about your challenges?
Yeah, basically, until this year, let's say, we were also in a sweet spot because we have competences in a very dedicated, let's say, technology. It's about Progress Open Edge. Until now, so we are a 70 plus developers company from like 7 years already. And we are the, let's say, we have the biggest pool of people with competences in this area. And until now, let's say the customers were looking for us, and we didn't really had to do any marketing or sales. So it was good times. But now we just realized that we have to somehow increase our portfolio in terms of technologies, and also for things that maybe we are not yet aware that we can do. And yeah, I think that our sales strategy has to be a little bit changed, more flexible, more creative. And it's still there are still some areas in which we have to investigate. That's why also I wanted to join this webinar to find out maybe new inspiration for us.
Yeah, and Ovidio, what I wanted to mention to you, because what you do, and I think this applies to some other software development companies as well. Sometimes it's just important to seek for the opportunities, made by the context. And for instance, many software development outsourcing companies have some innovative products that they haven't launched due to the lack of, resources and time. And maybe now it's the time to look into what's in your portfolio and launch it on the market, especially because many of those solutions address the challenges, that appear nowadays, such as teams working remotely or working from home. And you know what I'm talking about. You have
Yes.
Wayman. You have Wayman, and Wayman is a very interesting application with customizable dashboards and that automates processes and helps you manage your. This is the right time to try to launch it on the market, even if it's not 100% ready. There's clearly a need for such solutions, and I think this applies to other software development companies as well.
Yeah, it's indeed. I think like also Loredana mentioned, I think we're still in phase one in which you are like a little bit scared. Usually it's like we are freezing and they don't know exactly what to expect, and they are thinking more on the future, maybe just the present. And indeed, this situation and this context cannot be forever. So indeed, we should also take advantage somehow of this context. And of course, like you said already, genuine also helping others. So not only for our advantages, but also really make a difference. Indeed, we'll have to see and to, yeah, just be agile and creative.
Sure.
Yeah.
One of the things that I wanted to mention is that, what's the best cure for fear, especially that you mentioned that you're freezing? Action. So a person that is in action can overcome fear quite easily. What I'd advise you is don't stay like a deer in the, car lights,
headlights.
headlights or something. Please take some action. Sometimes, even if it's wrong action, you still have the opportunity to adjust it as you go. You will see if it's good or bad based on the market feedback or on customers and prospects and your business peers feedback, but do take some action. It will also give you a sense of purpose and meaning rather than just freezing, right? I cannot tell you how many companies I know that failed around us and went bankrupt, especially in 2008, just because they were waiting to see how the crisis ends, okay? And in the same time, companies that even did the wrong thing initially had the chance to change it and to adapt and so on, and we're still thriving with such companies these days. So please don't stop doing something, even if it doesn't seem the optimum thing to do at the moment. We also got a question from one of my EO colleagues, Asia Marinova. She has a technology consulting business in Bulgaria that's expanding abroad. And she says, new approaches to business development and B2B marketing, considering the stop of event marketing and difficulties in live meetings and networking. I, for one, have no issue networking. I found Slack groups talking about modern marketing, amazing technology Slack groups where I Slack with everyone, and there's different topics like lead generation and business development and just general networking. There's a ton of webinars as we speak. There's a great e-commerce summit that's happening where there's 3,800 participants. Imagine this, all of them have e-commerce, small or big shops. And so if you have any technology for that, those are amazing places to engage. I've seen people that are in the meeting with their email address or willing to engage on one-on-one conversations. I answer pretty much every sales call that's being given, everybody that calls me these days, just because I have a bit more time and I am remote right now. So I'm thinking maybe it's an important call, but there's not so many calls. So even traditional means just reaching out to people, asking, how are you dealing with the crisis? How is it going? May bring you some good opportunities, but there's also amazing opportunities to network, for example, in business communities. So there's a lot of business communities that I mentioned a few times, entrepreneurs organization, but there are others that are quite active. So I would believe that there's a few opportunities. Plus, you can organize your own digital events. You can, if you cannot go to, I don't know, UK or to Germany for an event, you can do a deal with an industry association, for example, in Germany or in the UK, and organize your own digital trade shows. And it's amazing and it's impactful, and you still can do quite a lot of business networking. But that means you also have to adapt a bit to the times. Andrea, do you have any other questions, or Juana?
I'm not certain if Jivko from Ancestral Superfood is here.
Jivko, are you here?
I don't think
Elena is here, but I'm not sure if Jivko is here. Yeah, I think you can tackle the question anyway.
Okay, so basically we got two questions. Jivko said that there are some offline sales channels closed, which basically everybody experienced. And it's not possible to grow further as everybody is in survival and panic mode. And Elena says that she aims to share with as much people as possible that the food that they produce is great to support the immune system. And to explain the benefits. So basically, we have the same advices for Andreas to promote the benefits of the product as much as possible, to not get discouraged if initially you don't see a spike in sales. I understand the hurt over the loss of the offline channels, but this is a great opportunity for your business and your model in general to do business, to sell online more, to develop your platform and your supply chains and the way you organize everything, basically from the billing to what company you use in order to deliver the products that you have, to basically prepare all of this system to be able to deliver as much product as you can. So I would promote the product as much as possible. I don't know if the same is the situation in your country, but here it's basically impossible to order something online from the big supermarkets. So you can position your shop as a great alternative to the big markets, and have the main idea that the food is great for the immune systems and it can help your body prepare in this tough situation. Does this help, Elena?
Yes, I thank you for that. I want to mention something, because our product is a little expensive. It costs about 20 euro, and we see that we have decreased also the online sales. Maybe because of the price, because people don't want to spend a lot of money, and they are thinking mostly about products which are totally necessary for the daily needs. And this is the one side. From the other side, our product is very absolutely good and the best choice for the immune system. And we are wondering now, should we should we say all the time that it's good for the immune system, or better not do it because people get rid of all these people who are talking about the immune system now?
Okay, I see. So I suggest two courses of actions for this. You can basically do Facebook targeting for the people which have a higher level of education and larger income. They wouldn't mind the pricing point. So
Yeah,
you can discuss with them about, you can still make the ads about the immune system. In terms of the pricing in general, right now you should try to get more customers and keep the customers close to you and show them that you care. So if it be possible perhaps to make some promotions and a bit of discount in order to gain new customers, show that you want your products to reach as many people as possible, and also to maybe, I mean, after the crisis passes, you're going to have more customers and you can go back to the normal pricing. But that's, I suppose, a business
Our
strategy.
offer is now that we are delivered for free now, and this is what we have decided to do for our customers. And here I have one more question, if possible.
Sure.
Because I have a list with, you know, that we are a startup more or less, and I still have a contact. I still have a list with cold contacts. Do you think that now is a good period to call these cold contacts and to try making from these contacts customers? Or better wait a little bit, like 2-3 weeks or something? What do you think?
I would reach out to them in quite personal matter if possible, perhaps with a special offer. Yes, if I were you, I try to communicate with them.
Because Loredana said before that don't try to sell to people something, and that's why I'm wondering.
What I meant, sorry. Yes, Andrea, go ahead.
It depends a bit on the packaging and on the messaging. So get in touch with them, see what they need, perhaps even ask feedback, do a questionnaire if you have a large database of contacts. And from there you can adjust your message accordingly.
So there is a tactic to sell empathically. I will actually send you the resources in our LinkedIn and Facebook group. I think the shortcut is Lair, if I'm not mistaken. And there's some very interesting ways where you can position your brand with sales calls, but you have to do it in the empathic way and in sensitive to the current situation. However, I believe that in particular, your products are of very good quality and can help everyone around this time. So I wouldn't mind that, first of all, warm up the call. So I don't believe that there are cold calls. There are people that don't know how to call, and there are people that know how to call. So please prepare for the calls. Please do it empathically, do it in the right tone of voice and sensitive to their situation, but do it. I didn't say to stop doing what you're doing right now. Let's see if we have some questions from the, maybe from the chat pane, or if anyone else wants to ask something. Monica, did you manage to have a look at the chat pane?
Yes, I did. So far, no one mentioned a question, but we have some information from Stefan, who is mentioning that his company can support other companies. So maybe he can share some information around that as well. Stefan Biji, can you?
Yeah, here. Hi, everybody.
Hi.
Nice to meet you. Yes, I have sent you previously a message about my profile, about what I'm currently doing, and mentioning that if somebody it may be interested in topics like automation, process automation, doesn't matter what kind of, I will be very happy to help him in order to offer them at least a second opinion about the topic that they may be interested. Anyway, we are in this business since 2000, and as Loredana said, we faced 3 crises. I'm starting with the dot-coms, following the 2008, and now this one. This crisis is not, I think that is not quite a crisis. It's very intriguing because it's like a cutthroat. It's not something that in which we are stuck in. It's not like an accumulation of bad factors. It's something that happens just like that out of the blue. And for sure that we will face a different way of getting out of it using special tools. So being in this area and delivering special tools to everybody that's may be interested in, I will be very happy to help them.
Okay, thank you, Stefan. Very interesting. Anybody else would like to share any questions or thoughts? How do you feel about the session today, if you don't have, or do you still have some questions?
Hi, Loredana, it's Ken.
Hi, Ken. Yes.
How are you? So, hello, everybody. I'm with the Peak Solutions. I work with Greg Corsten and Loredana in the United States, and I've been in marketing long enough to remember crises like, 2000, 2001. So, going back even earlier, I hate to say. But I did want to mention, and one of the things that Loredana said earlier about staying in touch with your customers, I think is really important. Especially, you should make sure your consultants and program managers stay in touch with their customers. They have a special inside view into their accounts, and they can identify opportunities and respond in a way to help the customer. I'll give you an example. I work with a client in the nonprofit space, and they recently hired somebody to help them with content marketing. They wanted somebody on site, so our offsite virtual model didn't work for them. However, that person didn't work out, and now we have an opportunity to present our services in a virtual manner, which of course fits with everybody's business model these days. If I hadn't been in communications with our client and working very closely with them, we may have lost out on that opportunity. The other thing I think is important, especially for your business leaders, is communicating with your employees and ensuring them that we'll all get through this crisis. The same client, one of their senior partners, sent out a really nice communications and saying that their pipeline is better than it was last year, and they'll expect to lose maybe some accounts, but at the same time expect to gain many more. So don't let all the bad news get you down. Stay positive, and we'll all weather this storm. Thanks.
Thanks, Ken. Very good point. Anybody
I'd like
else
to
has
say something. Yeah, please.
Yes,
Daniel?
please, Daniel, please. I was looking forward to hear you.
I think these meetings are really great. I will listen to the recording. There are some gems in there, which I'm sure I didn't fully catch, so I'm going back to them, both from NNC team and from the other participants. I've been in a lot of meetings these days, these kind of meetings, and I can say that probably this is the top one. Congrats, and for sure I'll reach out to you in private as well for help, basically.
That's amazing. And again, please remember, each one of you is invited to use this platform to get their voice out, to get their message out, to help others in their network with important information and advice and things that they have to share. So please join us in the Facebook and LinkedIn conversations. But if you have ideas to moderate such webinars, or even a panel, to participate in a panel or something, we're open to any idea. We are building these webinars to bring value to all our business ecosystems, and we hope that it becomes a platform for each and every one of you to get your voice out. Okay. Thanks again, Daniel. How do you feel about the session today? What do you feel we should continue in this manner? Do you feel that you know, there's interesting things that you heard? Are there topics that you'd like to hear about? So put in the chat pane, let's say on a scale of 1 to 10, how do you feel about the conversation today? Looking forward to see 100, 100 plus 1, and so on. Okay, so amazing. Let's see what can we do to get from an 8 to a 10? So whomever put 8 in there, can you share what can we improve? What are some of the things we could do better, and what would be more valuable to you? You can put in the chat point, or you can just unmute yourself and speak.
Yeah, I put an 8 because you know, it can always be better.
Thank you, Glenn. For sure.
Yeah.
Will you join the conversation again?
Yeah, I will. And I guess I can share one quick story, because we had an interesting thing
go
happening for our company. So we're a startup in the property technology, doing basically we did solutions for automating rental properties, from the booking online to the lock in the door, to recording all the entries and automating all the processes around a short-term rental. And of course, this Corona pretty much killed the short-term rental business in Poland, at least for now. But we did maintain communication, and we never really lost the volume of leads we were getting. And funny enough, Facebook turned out to be the best lead generator for us, whereas we thought maybe a search engine would deliver more for us because people would be looking for it. But we found, and also LinkedIn, we thought it was more of a people investing in real estate and then outsourcing their property for short-term rental. But in the end, Facebook was by far the best performer. And I guess the revelation we had is we pretty much said we're screwed because we just lost our main target. But in fact, we started to get contacts from hotels, which we wrote off as a potential prospect because they have receptions, they have card-based systems, and our system is all PIN-based. So because short-term renters, travelers do not want to download applications to open doors. They just want to have a code to get in the door. But the hotels approached us because they were looking for automation, because they had to lay off employees or they had to pay employees during the time of low tourism. And they were now looking for automation possibilities to not necessarily automate the hotel completely, but automate the routine tasks. So in fact, our pipeline shifted completely overnight to hotels. So I think the concept of continued communication and not shutting off the communication is definitely valid, because something might pop up that you didn't realize.
Yeah, that's amazing to hear. Thank you. I think that there is plenty of opportunities up there if you're just willing to open up and hear, you know, what the market is providing as in terms of feedback when you put your message out there. So this is a very good example of that. Angelo, you wanted to mention something? I think I saw you on mute at some point.
Yeah, well, you said what we need to get it from an 8 to a 10.
Yes,
and I was
please.
just going to say, if you have a $1 million deal that you're ready to slide over here, then I give you a 10. But otherwise, you get an 8, because we all need to try harder. So.
Will you join us again?
Yes, yeah, sure.
Okay, So
Eight
everybody
is
put in.
joined again.
Copycat. I put the 8 first.
Okay. So please put in the chat pane if you will join us next week. This is also a measure of the quality of the content. Thank you so much for joining us today. I think it was very productive and useful, and I also had a lot to learn from your experience that you were so generous to share with us. And please reach out to us if you have ideas for such webinars and if you would like to join this platform and help everybody else in this amazing group. Thank you so much.
Sorry, just a moment, Loredana.
Yes,
when you
please,
say
Daniel.
this platform, which platform is it? What is the platform?
We are calling this platform Business Growth in Crisis Support Group. In this platform, we are going to have LinkedIn and Facebook groups that are going to be Q&A for anyone that has challenges in terms of everything. We're trying to get as many professionals as possible together that can help. So hopefully companies that are joining and business people and leaders are going to start interacting there, showing us what their challenges are, and we're going to start coming up with solutions, with constructive solutions together. So it's like a crowdsourced, if you want, solution, diagnosis and so on. Then there are this series of webinars, so you can take over one of these webinars and you can present and moderate one of these webinars. Then there is a series of content like daily tips, short videos that we're pushing out, like pieces of advice and content. And we are open to any other types of ideas, questions or challenges you may have. Okay. So
right. Thanks.
Anything of this you can use for yourself. Okay.
Great, thank you.
I think you're all amazing. You all have very good things to share. So please go ahead and take this over and use this for yourself, but also to help the others in this group. Okay. Thank you so much. I'm so grateful you were able to make it. I know it's late and after hours, and I'm very grateful to the kids at home that were patient and could listen through all of this. Thanks for contributing, and I look forward to seeing you next week. This is amazing. It gave me such good energy.
Way to go, Loredana and NNC. Thank you so much.
Thank you. See you next week.
Nice to meet everyone.
Thank you, Loredana.
Thank you,
everyone.
Bye-bye.
Thanks.
Bye.
Bye.